Hello all, welcome to Public Cloud Design Tips and Tricks. Today's topic is AWS Fargate. The problem statement is how to run and manage container application in a serverless compute engine. Now before we jump into Fargate, let's discuss about how the transformation of compute workload happened in AWS. So it started with AWS EC2. It's a simple VM workload based situation where you have EC2 machines, and within that machines the applications gets deployed. So that is AWS EC2 VM workload, and then AWS ECS EC2 came into picture, where ECS is Elastic Container Service, so it has a orchestration capability for container application. But still, this approach has the EC2 machines where containers gets deployed, and the team who are working with this approach also has to manage the EC2 instances. So that is how it looks like. And after that, AWS Fargate came into picture, which is a pure serverless container approach. And that is where actually the developers, they don't need to worry about the infrastructure management part, and that is how AWS Fargate is a serverless compute engine to run containers. It allows developer to focus on application without thinking of infra management part. It enables or container orchestration capability because of ECS, and it brings microservice adoption in application architecture and design pattern for the implementation aspects. It also decouples the application from the host it is running on. We have already discussed, and it available with ECS and EKS flavor. Okay, EKS is Elastic Kubernetes Service, ECS is Elastic Container Service. Now, coming to the key concepts of container app, containers are created using a read-only template called container image. Okay, so containers are the instances of container image. Now, images are created from a plain text file that is called Docker file. Okay, so from the Docker file, container images gets created, and once the image gets created, there is a storage repo where it can be registered, and that is called container registry. For example, container registries are Docker Hub or Elastic Container Registry in case of AWS. Now, from that storage or from that repo, which is container registry, the images or the Docker images can be downloaded and launch as a container in the host or platform clusters. Okay, so that is how it works, and that is how it looks like basically. Now, coming to the key concepts of ECS Fargate, it always starts with container definitions. So, what is a container definition? Container definition is nothing but it depicts the image name and the capacity requirement for that container where the task will be running. Now, what is a task definition? Task definition is a blueprint of your applications in JSON format, and what it provides? It provides app image informations, the CPU and memory which is required to run that image basically, as well as the operating system information like Linux and Windows, the port where the application will be accessed, that is the port information, and where that particular container or the task will be deployed, which network basically, that is the network infos, whether it's a private network or a public network. And launcher type is more whether it's a Fargate launch type or a EC2 launch type. Here in this case, it is Fargate launch type. Region details is more about where it will be hosted, in which region, for example, Europe or US or Asia Pacific. Log information is more about where are you trying to route your log or to capture the log. By default, it is AWS log, which is CloudWatch. It can also be integrated with other mechanisms like Splunk or something like that. Okay, so that is what is the task definition tells about. Okay, now what is a task? A task is an instance of a task definition running in ECS clusters. So it is the physical form of a task definitions. For example, like same concept where the blueprint is a class and object is the physical form of that blueprint. Similarly, task is a physical form of a task definition. Okay, now a scheduler within AWS Fargate can be used to control the trigger of the task. So it could be based on an event. For example, in CloudWatch, let's say the task should run based on the events that can be controlled with a scheduler, both start and stopping the task. Okay. Now coming to the cluster, it is the group of resources assigned to the application to run. And in Fargate, we mentioned launcher type as Fargate, I have already told, means ECS will manage all clusters resources for you. So it's more a serverless approach. Now, how a reference architecture looks like is here. If you see the diagram, there is the AWS cloud, and there are two availability zone. Within that availability zone, there is a network is VPC, and within that network, there are subnets. Subnets can be public and private based on your applications, and within that subnet, there is a container instance, and within that container, there are multiple tasks running. So that is how it looks like. The availability zone to also have the similar set of other applications, and now it is exposed publicly, and the request is coming using Amazon route 53, and that drops into application load balancer, and application load balancer based on URL pattern, it sends the request to the specific application or task. So that is how a reference architecture looks like. Now, if you really want to start from scratch using Fargate, you have to follow few steps actually. So the first step is you have to go to the AWS portal, and where you can select Amazon Container Service. Now, once you select that container service, the step 2 is create a container definition. So when you create a container definition, it is more about what image and what are the memory requirement. So by default in AWS, if you start from scratch, you can have few sample images like web applications, or like Nginx application, or some sample applications that AWS provides that you can use. Then step 3, you can create a task definitions, where basically you just provide the task parameters that we have already discussed in task definition. And once that is done, in step 4, you can configure a service. So configuring a service is again how the service will look like, whether it needs an application load balancer, whether it needs to resides in a network. All those things you can configure in step 4. And in step 5, you can configure the clusters. It means how many numbers of tasks you are going to be created within the container. Those kind of parameters you can handle in step 5 basically. And once step 1 to 5 is done, your cluster creation is done with all the tasks in place. You can validate those using a simple web browsers, where you can just kind of hit the link provided by the route 53, or if you're directly working with the application load balancer, and then you can check whether it is reaching to the specific task or the application. So that is how you can start with creating Fargate clusters. There are few links also available from Amazon, where you can directly go to the link and do a lot of deep dive in how Fargate works, and also do lots of hands-on on Fargate. And you can get more information on how Fargate works on a real life scenario basically. So that's it for the day. Thank you and have a good day.